Oh dear, I haven't had it full screened yet. Anyway, hello everybody! It is Amadeus Brony time, and today we're reacting to some nostalgia critic. And today we're reacting to How True is Amadeus. I decided that I wanted to do something a little different, and I really love the nostalgia critic. I'm a big fan of the nostalgia critic, so I said, hey, why not react to one of his videos? Which I will be reacting to more stuff other than MLP in the near future when there's nothing on, because so far my entire channel has been MLP, and I want to do something a little different, because, you know, get out from the norm. So, How True is Amadeus? If you don't know what Amadeus is, they'll explain in this video, but I saw the movie, I was fine with it. It was a pretty enjoyable movie, but let's react to this. Dun dun!
Hello, I'm the Nostalgia Critic. I remembered so you don't have to. If you're like me, you discovered the story of Mozart through the movie Amadeus.
Not true! Not true! The movie is entirely not true!
And if you're like me, you always encounter someone who says this.
Instead of trying to get all your information from movies, why don't you just try knowing everything, like I do?
Oh, wow.
It seems like if you even bring up that you enjoy the film, somebody has to talk about the historical inaccuracies. To its credit,
I've never really had
Amadeus
that.
never claims to be a true story. Based on the play, Amadeus looks at the life of Wolfgang Mozart from the point of view of another composer named Antonio Salieri. He claims he killed Mozart because he was jealous that such talent had fallen on what appeared to be a giggling, dirty delinquent. This is one of those movies everybody can get behind. It's visually interesting, has dramatic intrigue, hilarious comedy, and introduced people to a part of music history that was phenomenally fascinating. Most people, when they hear Mozart, think his life is going to be one of just looking fancy and keeping up appearances. But many people, myself included, were enjoyably surprised to find out how weird, funny, brilliant, immature, and even kind of downright insane a person could be.
And none of it is true. So you see, you actually know nothing about Mozart. Why don't you just swipe left? That's all you see everywhere, right? Just swiping iPhones. That's you.
The movie got me so into the life of Mozart that I decided to do a little research to see how accurate it actually was. The best way to do this is to go over the common complaints that people swear must have been made up for the movie.
Scholars and musicians bristled at its depiction of the composer as a silly, overgrown child with a hyena cackle.
And it probably goes without saying, but there are spoilers in this. And
no, don't worry, I've already seen it. Yeah, don't watch this video if you haven't seen
one
it.
of the finest movies ever made.
And it won an Oscar!
Start on a topic so common that even The Simpsons addressed it. Mozart was a lazy idiot. At the end of a very funny spoof The Simpsons did of the film, Lisa points out that the movie has a lot of historical inaccuracies, claiming Mozart worked very hard on his music and Salieri was a respected
The movie really didn't show that he didn't.
Make him look like a buffoon. Like, brilliant music just came to him, and he put no effort into it whatsoever.
But many people are just going by the impression it made, not what the film was actually saying. It is documented that Mozart had a very immature, even dirty sense of humor. He loved fart jokes and sex jokes, and he was boastful and bad with money. This kind of attitude would certainly give the impression that he didn't know what he was doing and that he was just a party animal. Like how
I can see that.
But the film does explain that he works all the time. It doesn't just come to him out of nowhere. He's just constantly thinking of music 24/7 and is planning it out in his mind.
Does he work?
You know, like Beethoven did.
Sir. I don't mean that he's lazy, because he's not at all. He works all day long.
He just sits there writing and writing.
This makes a lot of sense when you see how much his father hammered music into his brain as a child. But yes, they acknowledge that the music took time and effort. And in response to the other comment that Salieri was a respected composer, the movie never said he wasn't. In the opening, we see more people remember Mozart's music rather than his, but it's shown clearly that not only was Salieri's work adored in his day, but many loved it even more than Mozart's, as Mozart's work seemed too different and new at the time.
Yep.
It's the best opera yet written, my friend. You do honor to Vienna and to me.
Which brings us to the next questionable subject. Did fellow composers, including Salieri, actually hate Mozart? Mozart often wrote that he felt the other composers were blocking him, trying to stand in the way of his work reaching even greater success. And yes, the Emperor did famously say that his music had too many notes. Which is like saying a book has too many letters.
There are simply too many notes. That's all. Just cut a few and it'll be perfect.
He was never given a position in the Emperor's court. One of the reasons being he didn't just write his music for the musical elite, he wrote it so that the everyman could appreciate it as well. There were also so many that wanted to see Mozart as a one-trick pony or a dancing monkey, seeing how his fame started when he was just a little kid. So naturally, there were critics that said he was the equivalent of what we would call a fading child star. Still, he was popular for the most part and able to calm down his wild attitude when he needed to. So while this is more speculation and it's impossible to figure out how far it went, it's still not without
there really
plausible
isn't
possibility.
much to really
what about
go
the
on.
masked man that commissioned the Requiem from him? The person who was trying to steal the work for himself. Clearly that is work of Hollywood.
Well, on that you're correct.
You see...
He didn't wear a mask.
What?
Yeah, the part you'd swear was out of a lame Hollywood thriller actually contains
Yeah,
a
that
lot
was
of
a little
truth.
weird for
A
me.
composer named Count Franz von Walsing anonymously commissioned Mozart to compose a requiem for his late wife. The Count had a history for taking compositions from famous composers and passing it off as his own, as he was an incredible pianist but not the best composer. So it's incredibly likely he was going to do the same with Mozart's work. He used servants and messengers to communicate with the ill Mozart, and as shown in the movie, he died in the middle of writing it. It was then handed off to other composers to try and complete it so that his wife could still collect
Yeah,
the
I
money
think
and
he
pay off
died
a lot
from
of the
some,
debt
like,
her husband accumulated.
form of fever
So, while
that
it wasn't
can happen from
Salieri,
step
as
to
it said in the movie, it was still someone who had quite a devious plan, proving once again truth really can be stranger than fiction.
Yes, but let's not tap dance around the biggest inaccuracy, the one that the whole film is centered around. Salieri did not claim he killed Mozart. Oh, come on now, are we conspiracy theorists?
Oh, not at all. It's incredibly unlikely that Salieri did anything that he said he did in the movie.
Very good.
But he did claim that he killed Mozart.
Wow.
In his later years,
That's one thing I didn't
just like
know.
in the film, tried to kill himself and confessed that he was the one responsible for Mozart's death. And since there weren't really doctors of mental health back then, they called a priest, who would listen to him explain how he finished him off. Now, historians have dismissed this as mad ravings of a person whose sanity has clearly deteriorated. But this is where the film gets very clever. Who's telling the story?
Yep.
Salieri. That means that the whole thing could be told under the guise that he believes what he's talking about really happened. If you look at it that way, even to the point where he convinces the priest that what he's saying is true, the story suddenly takes on a much more interesting angle. Mozart, even near the end of his life, swears he's been poisoned, and often says that he's writing the Requiem more for himself. But in terms of Salieri doing it, this is the part that's clearly historical fiction. This is where we enter Oliver Stone's JFK or the Da Vinci Code. It's a fantasy told in a world of fact. But what makes this so clever is that you can just say everything around Salieri is mostly fiction while everything around Mozart is mostly accurate. He worked hard on his music, like the movie said. He could be immature, like the movie said. He was a debtor, a drinker, a boaster, but also one of the most unbelievable talents the world has ever known. So when somebody says Amadeus is totally nonsense, you can say that the majority of it is true except for the Salieri parts. Those parts are based on the theories and stories that spread over the years. Deceitful stories so crazy and unbelievable based off of a life so crazy and unbelievable that it's hard to know where one ends and the other begins. That's the genius of the movie. It blends fiction and reality so well that even years later people still confuse what really happened and what didn't. It's just easy to label it as one thing and dismiss people who see value in its historical relevance. But the life of Mozart can't be labeled as one thing. It's too strange for that. This movie did its homework in getting a lot of the history in it correct and intentionally incorporated fiction to enhance a life that is very hard to get a grasp on. It's funny when you see how many people boast about how many things the movie got quote-unquote wrong, as if the creators didn't know what they were doing. Very similar to how the composers in the movie assume Mozart didn't know what he was doing because he was too strange and new. In fact, with all the people talking about the inaccuracies, even though they got a lot of those inaccuracies wrong, you could argue that they're the ones who are misinformed.
A fouler phrase has never been spoken!
There are still things left unknown about Mozart and his work, and even what we do know is subject to some speculation, so nobody will ever get the full story. But only a life as strange as this could blend truth and fiction, honesty and deceit, in such a perfect way. Mozart's life never could and never should be told straightforward. It's a maddening spin that has to be experienced and challenge you, exactly like his music does. It's bizarre, yet humanizing. Dark, yet bright. Funny, yet serious. Something to have on in the background, or listen to by some of the greatest musicians of our time. The film is a masterwork that deserves to be honored as much as Mozart himself is. And, if anybody tells you you shouldn't enjoy it because of its inaccuracies, you can tell them that your reason for liking it simply has too many notes for them to understand.
Well,
Yay.
there it is.
I'm a nostalgia critic, I remember it so you don't have to.
And, yep.
Coming next week, it's the CGI monster.
Oh, Alvin and the Chipmunks. Alright. So that's what's next, I guess. Anyway, I agree with everything in it, and I've looked it up too, and it's true. Amadeus is not entirely fiction. It is historically accurate in some points, but nothing historically accurate can really be that entertaining. For me, I was fine with it. I enjoyed it. I think it's a good movie, and I think it deserved the Oscars that it got. And if any of you disagree with me, well, my reason is too many notes. Thank you all for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to BronyTime for more content, and I will see you guys later.